do his thing in the background, and I can understand that. But the fact that he did it all with like this smile on his face throughout the whole thing. I mean, the first time we saw him in the locker room, which was, I think it was a couple months after the knee injury happened, on crutches, can't really walk, and he's still smiling. And at that point, I don't know if he still thought a career was even possible, but he was gonna take that chance or gonna put in the work to see if that was gonna happen. I can't say enough good things about not only him being able to come back from that knee injury, which I think probably had nearly every ligament shredded in there, but the way he did it without complaining, with just a really good attitude about it.
And, I wrote this preseason, hey, Jacksonville should have Bridgewater on the roster. And now Jacksonville is one of those handful of teams out there that have a good enough team that with good quarterbacking, they'd make the playoffs and they'd be a threat in the playoffs. And they should be kicking themselves, because I think Teddy Bridgewater would be perfect for Jacksonville. He might be perfect for the Jets if they didn't want to throw the rookie in right away. I think there are a lot of teams Teddy could have won with this year, assuming he could have stayed healthy.
Yeah, Jacksonville's one play. And granted, they still have a few days. They could make a trade.
Right.
One of the places I think he should go, and they should be interested in, maybe not a trade because they're not good enough right now, but the Giants.
Yeah.
I think Eli Manning is just done.
He's done.
It's just done. And I've never thought he was that great of a quarterback. He's had stretches where he catches a hot streak.
Yep.
Or he's had good defenses that help him and that hot streak win a Super Bowl. But, man, I think Teddy Bridgewater should be a Giant with Pat Shurmur. And
that's a great idea.
Maybe you draft a guy, too, in the second or third round if you bring in Bridgewater, because, frankly, I still would have questions about his knee and holding up as a full-time starter. But, if you have Bridgewater and somebody else, actually, don't they have Kyle Lauletta right now, I think?
Yes.
So they kind of have a young guy that maybe perhaps could be a starter in the future. They're not going anywhere this year, so I don't think you give up too much draft capital. And it's also interesting to me to kind of contemplate the possibility that, Drew Brees won't say it. He's not saying what his plans are, but you never know when a guy is just ready to be done. He's done so much in his career.
Right.
After this year, if he's gone, maybe they re-sign Teddy.
Yeah. Or if Drew wins the Super Bowl this year.
Right.
Maybe that's when he walks away.
Yep. For sure.
Thanks to Fixology Repair, third floor of the Mall of America and downtown in the Skyway. I take my devices there. They can fix all your stuff. They'll also sell you cool watches and accessories. Check out fixologyrepair.com.
There are some things in life that you just can't live without. Now, whether it's a special piece of jewelry, a watch, or even your smartphone, you want it in working condition. At Fixology Repair, we are committed to restoring your pieces so that everything works or fits the way it ought to. Watch servicing, chain repair, and broken screen replacements are just a few of the services that we offer at Mall of America. Please visit us at fixologyrepair.com or at fixologymn on Twitter to learn more. Mention this ad and get a 10% discount on our services.
So, interesting injury week. They're facing a very good team, a very hot team, and they're banged up. The Vikings are banged up.
Yeah, for sure. The Saints have a couple guys on their injury report that didn't practice on Thursday, but overall, the Vikings are in far worse shape heading into this game. The good news, first of all, is Riley Reif has returned to practice. I fully expect that he's going to be their starting left tackle. The interesting thing to me is that they still have Rashad Hill kind of practicing splitting reps with Riley Reif, which means maybe they're kind of hedging their bets if something would happen to Reif or he doesn't warm up well on Sunday before the game. But I think it's probably going to be Riley Reif at left tackle. The interesting thing is that Brian O'Neill is still the right tackle, which I absolutely think is the right move. Rashad Hill has not looked good or consistent enough out at left tackle. He wasn't very consistent out at right tackle either. And Brian O'Neill has just plain looked better. If you'd asked me in training camp, when they're scrimmaging against the Jaguars, who should be their right tackle, I would have said Rashad Hill because I don't think Brian O'Neill was ready at that point. But based off of the last two performances, he sure looks ready to be their right tackle. I mean, both of Latavius Murray's touchdowns started to the right side where you had Reef and Remmers and Elfline helping out over there. So I think you're looking at Reef, Danny Isadora at left guard because I don't think Tom Compton's going to play because of that knee sprain. Elfline at center, obviously Remmers and O'Neill at right tackle.
What does the rest of the injury report look like right now?
Well, Dalvin Cook still is not practicing. Based off of what they've done the last couple of weeks with him, sure, he could probably be out there going through something. It's just, to me, at this point, you've got a winning record right now. You may or may not beat the Saints with or without Dalvin Cook. And
Murray's playing well.
Yeah, and Murray's playing well, and you have Detroit after that. Then you have the bye. Give them this month off. Come back after the bye. And hopefully at that point you have a healthy Dalvin Cook, or you figure out, geez, maybe this thing isn't ever going to, get better yet this season. But you would hope with a month off that the hamstring would respond. Defensively are really kind of the biggest concern. Sendeo is still out, but based off of what they've done with George Iloka, J-Ron Kearse playing a little bit there, Anthony Harris a little bit, I think they're fine without Sendeo. They might be better. And I also like the fact that they're mixing up a lot of their packages, where sometimes it's Iloka at safety, sometimes it's Harris at safety, sometimes it's J-Ron Kearse at nickel corner, sometimes it's Mackenzie Alexander, even Iloka playing up there at times. I kind of like that. It keeps the defense or the offense guessing, like, where's our matchup? Heading in, coming out of the huddle, where's our matchup in this one? So I like that. But Rhodes, I don't think is going to play. And if I had to guess, he might be a guy that's out until after the bye, just based off of him grabbing the area where I would think it's either a mid-foot sprain or a high ankle sprain. And then Anthony Barr, he doesn't look like he's going to play either. So I am really curious to see Eric Wilson in more of a full-time role. But given the fact that you're playing the Saints,
He's probably not going to be on the field much.
Well, Eric, if Anthony Barr isn't, I would think Eric Wilson would be. Yeah. How does he handle Mark Ingram or Alvin Kamara out of the backfield? To me, all bets are off, though, given the fact that J-Ron Kearse has played so well. I mean, you could have Mackenzie Alexander in the slot, and maybe J-Ron's in sort of this floating linebacker hybrid role where you might only have one linebacker on the field.
Right. That's the point I was making.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be really interesting to see the way that Zimmer handles this based off of the injury and the opponent that you're playing, because he obviously knows Sean Payton very well.
Absolutely. Not only has Murray played well, but Thomas and Boone have looked good. Really, other than that one backwards pass that I think it was Thomas fumbled.
Yes. Yeah.
Other than that, they've been pretty flawless.
Yeah, well, I think Boone had a drop pass about 8 yards downfield on a third down pass. But, what he gives them is a little bit what Dalvin Cook gives them, which is a little more explosiveness in the running game compared to Latavius Murray. Murray, is typically going to be the 3 to 5 yard run guy. He has broken off some bigger ones, but a lot of that has to do with teams that were so focused on flooding the line of scrimmage with defenders that once you break through, there's one guy there to make miss. But I think Mike Boone, Rock Thomas have a better chance of making that last guy miss rather than Murray if it's a long run.
Right. Let's talk about Trey Waynes. Do want to first thank Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin, Hoaglund. He can help you no matter where you live. He handles my insurance and Michael Russo's insurance.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoagland. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number one in car insurance since World War II and number one in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
So, Mike Hughes was making a big impression. Xavier Rhodes is established. I think we had kind of stopped talking a lot about Trey Waynes. Has he played well lately?
I thought he had one of his best, if not his very best game against the Jets. He was targeted quite a bit, 6 times. I think he gave up 1 pass for 6 yards. But to me, I was most impressed with his run defense. And frankly, he's been pretty good the last couple of years in run defense. That's been his most consistent part. He's a really good tackler. And I was asking Zimmer about this earlier this week, and he said it's really his consistency of making sure he's paying attention to the right thing. And if he's doing that, he's going to make the tackle. And so it's a consistency thing. It's an experience thing with Waynes. But I've been highly impressed with what he's been able to do so far. Absolutely.
Patrick Peterson, does that make any sense for this team?
No, not at this point. I mean,
yes, he's a good player, but
man,
he's a really good player.
Yes, hey, you want to do a straight-up trade for Trey Waynes, who I just got done boasting about? Go ahead.
Yes.
But that's not happening. So it's a great speculation piece because, guess what? If Xavier Rhodes is hurting and Mike Hughes is out and the Vikings may or may not be convinced that Mackenzie Alexander has a long-term future here, okay, let's try to fit all of these things together and say, hey, is a Vikings trade for Patrick Peterson possible? Okay, it's possible, and yes, they would have to do a lot of moving around in their salary cap to make it happen, but despite Mike Zimmer always saying you can never have enough good cornerbacks, it's true until you don't have the money to afford it and the rest of your team is suffering because of it. So, I mean, you've got Trey Waynes coming back next year. You've got Mike Hughes coming back next year. Probably Mackenzie Alexander. I don't see it. I hope people viewed that piece that was originally written on ESPN as a nice speculation, but not happening.
Yeah. Let me ask you a crazy fan-type proposal. What about Anthony Barr, Trey Waynes for Patrick Peterson?
Yes.
You do it if you're the Vikings?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I would.
You do it if you're the Cardinals?
Depends on how unhappy Patrick Peterson is. Now, he says he wants to be a Cardinal and he loves the organization, so he's saying all the right things, which actually I appreciate that more than a guy that's going to come out and blast the organization. But, yeah, in a heartbeat I would, because, number one, like I said earlier when we were talking about injuries, I'm really curious to see how Eric Wilson plays in place of Anthony Barr, because to me, if Barr is out for, say, these next 2 games before the bye, and Eric Wilson proves that he can be a decent starter for them, then I'm not paying Barr $10 million next year or even $8 or $7 million. I'm just going with Eric Wilson, given the salary cap structure that the Vikings are working under right now. And, because Barr is in his last year of his contract under the 5th-year option, to me, it would be a no-brainer. I would do that in a heartbeat.
I'd do it, absolutely. Trade. I just don't know if the Cardinals were, and I don't know if the Vikings would go down that road, but I certainly would. The other cornerback we need to let's talk about Holton Hill. Let's make our stupid predictions. Let me remind people again, BiteSquad.com, promo code Vikings2018, as if it's one word, $10 off your order. That is good Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Great thing to do on the game day of the Saints is eat some good local fare, because they deliver from a lot of great restaurants. All right. What is your take on Holton Hill right now?
I think he's a very strong developmental cornerback who, if he has to play in this game, is going to struggle with consistency. Yeah. I mean, he's thrown into a terrible spot in the fact that, you're making your first start, you're undrafted, which means with the other cornerbacks on this roster, you haven't gotten a lot of work in practices and training camp going against super quality receivers like Thielen or Diggs, and now you're going to get asked to play your first full-time game against Drew Brees. He's saying, yes, I love the challenge of it. That's great. I appreciate that, and I know why you're saying it. I'll be curious if he still appreciates the challenge after the game is over. Because, I mean, Sean Payton's going to scheme it up so that there's a lot of Michael Thomas against him. And I don't think it's going to go well with Drew Brees targeting Holton Hill. I mean, that said, I still think Holton Hill has a potential to be a starter at some point down the road. but it's not in his first year, and